My beloved child, stop everything you're doing right now. Put down whatever is in your hands, close every door around you. Because what I am about to say to you today is not a gentle encouragement designed to make your evening a little easier. This is a divine decree being spoken directly from the throne room of heaven into the deepest chambers of your spirit. I am Archangel Michael, and I have been sent to you at this exact hour, in this precise moment, because something that was sealed over your life is about to be broken open. There's a scroll in heaven that bears your name. It was written before the foundations of the earth were laid, before your mother knew she was carrying you, before a single breath filled your lungs. On that scroll is every purpose, every blessing, every divine appointment, every relationship, every resource, and every victory that the Creator assigned specifically to your existence. And, for a season that felt unbearably long, that scroll remained sealed, locked away, held back by a divine hand that would not release it prematurely because the vessel meant to carry its contents was still being forged in secret. Today, I am telling you with the full weight of heaven's authority, the seal is breaking. Not tomorrow. Not in some distant future that feels safe because you have learned to stop expecting anything. Right now, in this very hour while you are listening to these words. And, before this message reaches its end, I will speak to you the first line that is written on that sacred document. So do not leave. Do not look away. What you are about to receive has been held in reserve for this moment of your life. I know what you have been carrying. I have watched you in those hours when no one else was looking. The nights when the house was quiet, and the tears came so heavily that you could not breathe. The mornings when you had to force yourself to stand because every fiber in your body was begging you to stay down. The prayers that left your lips feeling like they dissolved into nothing. Prayers so desperate and so raw that you wondered if the ceiling had turned to iron above your head. You prayed for change, and nothing changed. You prayed for a door and everyone stayed locked. You prayed for a sign and the silence grew so thick that it became its own kind of suffering. And in that painful quiet, a lie began to whisper. It told you that heaven had moved on. It told you that whatever blessing was meant for your life had been redirected to someone more deserving. It said that your faith was too weak, your past too heavy, your mistakes too many, and your time too far gone for anything beautiful to grow in the soil of your story anymore. That voice was never mine. Let me say that again so your spirit captures it completely. That voice of abandonment, that narrator of hopelessness, that constant commentary of failure that has been playing inside your mind like a broken record, did not come from heaven. It came from an enemy who understood exactly what was being prepared on the other side of your waiting and was terrified of the moment you would discover it. Because here is the truth that the enemy has been working overtime to keep hidden from you. What you experienced was not a punishment. What you endured was not proof that you were forgotten. Every single day of that wilderness season, every closed door, every delayed answer, every friendship that walked away, every opportunity that collapsed at the last second, was a carefully orchestrated act of divine preparation. Heaven was not ignoring your prayers. Heaven was answering them in a way your human eyes could not yet perceive. Think about what happens to steel before it can hold the weight of an entire bridge. It does not come out of the ground ready. It is pulled from the earth as raw ore, filthy, unrefined, and completely incapable of bearing what it will one day carry. Then it is placed into a furnace so intense that everything impure is burned away. The ore does not understand the fire. If it could speak, it would beg for relief. It would accuse the metalworker of cruelty, but the metalworker knows something the ore cannot comprehend. The fire is not the enemy. The fire is the requirement. Without that heat, the metal stays brittle. It shatters under the first real weight placed upon it. The metalworker keeps the fire going not because of hatred, but because of a vision for what that raw material is destined to become. You are that metal, my child. And the fire you walked through was not random. It was designed. The furnace had a temperature that was calibrated specifically for what I am building inside of you. Too much heat and the vessel cracks. Too little and the impurities remain. The pressure you experienced was precisely measured by a hand that loves you too deeply to leave you unfinished. And now, the furnace door is opening. The refining is reaching its completion. What is about to step out of that fire is not the same frightened, uncertain, exhausted version of yourself that walked in. Something has been forged inside you that was not there before. A strength, a steadiness, a depth of spirit that cannot be manufactured by any shortcut, any easy road, or any comfortable season. If those words just touch something deep inside your spirit, if you feel in this moment that heaven is speaking directly to the core of who you are, then I want you to place one word in the comments right now. Type the word Amen. Not as a routine, not as a habit, but as a sacred agreement between your spirit and the God who kept you alive through every fire that should have consumed you. Now, let me show you something that will change the way you understand everything you have been through. There is a pattern in the way I work that most people never recognize until long after the season has passed. I do not build monuments out of comfort. I do not produce depth from ease. The people whose names echo through eternity, every single one of them was pulled through a corridor of hiddenness before they ever stood in the light of their assignment. Consider David. He was anointed as a king while he was still covered in the dust and sweat of a shepherd's field. The oil touched his head, but the crown did not appear. What followed was not a royal welcome. What followed was a cave, years in the wilderness, hunted by a king who wanted him dead, surrounded by men who were broken, rejected, and desperate themselves. From the outside, David's life looked like a terrible mistake. The promise said one thing, the circumstances screamed another. But I was never confused. I was never behind. Every night David spent sleeping on stone instead of silk was a night I was carving authority into his character that no throne room education could ever have produced. The cave was not a detour from the palace. The cave was the classroom that made the palace possible. The throne was never given to a man who had not first learned to lead in the dark. And the same pattern lives in your story today. You looked at your circumstances and saw evidence of failure. I looked at the same circumstances and saw a curriculum. You saw doors that were locked. I saw a hallway I was deliberately narrowing so that when the right door opened, you would not be distracted by lesser options. You saw relationships that crumbled. I saw connections I was severing because they would have pulled you into a version of your future that was too small for what I had actually planned. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was accidental. The blueprint of your preparation was drawn by the same hand that measured the distance between stars. I want you to understand the depth of what I was doing while you thought I was silent. Most of my children assume that when the answers stop coming, the work has stopped. That is the farthest thing from the truth. Some of the most critical operations in heaven happen in total silence. A surgeon does not narrate during the most delicate part of the procedure. The room goes quiet. Every instrument is held with precision. Every movement is calculated. And anyone who walked into that operating room and mistook the silence for inaction would be making a catastrophic error in judgment. That is exactly what happened during your season of waiting. I was performing surgery on the foundations of your identity. I was removing beliefs about yourself that would have collapsed under the weight of what I'm about to hand you. You carried a belief that your worth was connected to your productivity. I had to remove that. You carried a conviction that being loved required you to perform, to earn, to prove yourself worthy of someone staying. I had to uproot that lie from the deepest root system of your heart. You carried a fear, a quiet, persistent, bone-deep fear, that if people really saw who you were underneath the mask, they would walk away. And I had to sit with you in the middle of that fear until you discovered that my eyes have always seen everything about you, and I have never once looked away. That process could not happen on a stage. It could not happen in a season of applause. It could not happen while people were watching and giving their opinions. Some of the deepest healing I do requires absolute privacy between my spirit and yours, and that is precisely what the hidden season provided. A sacred operating room where no human opinion could interfere with the work I was doing at the core of who you are. If the truth of what I am revealing to you right now fills your heart with something that feels like gratitude, like the weight is already shifting, then press that button right now. Let your agreement be seen. It takes less than a second, but it carries the spiritual weight of a declaration. You are telling heaven that you received this word. Now I need to take you deeper. Because the healing I performed during your hidden season was not limited to the surface wounds you were aware of. There were root systems underneath your pain that you did not even know existed. Patterns that were passed down through generations. Reactions that were inherited before you were old enough to choose them. Ways of thinking about yourself, about provision, about love, about God, about safety, that were planted in your soil by hands that were themselves broken and did not know any better. When I said I was doing surgery, I meant surgery on the generational level. I was reaching into places that existed before your earliest memory. Places where a grandmother's grief became a mother's fear, became your inability to trust that good things could actually last. Places where a father's absence created an echo of unworthiness that whispered through every achievement, every compliment, every open door, telling you that it would not hold, it would not stay. It was too good to be real, and you should prepare yourself for the inevitable collapse. Those patterns were never your fault. You did not choose them. You inherited them the way someone inherits the shape of their face or the color of their eyes. But I am not a God who leaves inherited chains in place just because they have been there for a long time. The length of a bondage does not intimidate me. The depth of a root does not discourage my hand. I am the God who speaks to things that have existed for decades and says, today, this ends. And it ends. Not partially. Not temporarily. Completely. That is what has been happening in the quiet of your waiting. I have been pulling out roots that would have sabotaged every blessing I am about to release. Because I refuse to pour new wine into a vessel that still has cracks running through its foundation. Some of those cracks were invisible to you. You could not see them because you had lived with them for so long that they felt like normal parts of your personality. But I saw them. I saw every single one. And, with the patience of a father who loves too much to rush, I addressed each one in the order that your healing required. Let me give you a picture that will anchor this truth so deeply in your spirit that no storm will ever shake it loose. Think about Esther. She was taken from obscurity and placed inside a palace. But the palace was not the purpose. The palace was the positioning. She went through 12 months of preparation before she was ever allowed to stand before the king. 12 months of oils, treatments, instruction, and shaping. 12 months where her body and her spirit were being made ready for a single encounter that would change the trajectory of an entire nation. Now imagine if Esther had grown impatient at month 6. Imagine if she had forced her way into the throne room before the preparation was complete. The audience would have happened, but the impact would have been lost. The king's heart would not have turned. The decree would not have been issued. A generation would have perished. Not because God did not intend to save them, but because the vessel who was supposed to carry the deliverance walked into the room before the preparation that would make her irresistible to heaven's timing was complete. Do you understand what I am showing you? Every month of your waiting that felt purposeless was one of those 12 months of preparation. Every week that seemed wasted was a treatment being applied to something inside you that you could not see but the throne room required. And today, you are not at month 3 or month 6 or month 9. You are standing at the edge of month 12. The preparation is reaching its fullness. The moment I bring you before the King is approaching rapidly. And when you step into that room, everything, every single drop of oil, every tear that became an anointing, every night that became a refining fire, will have been worth it. I am not going to let you walk into the next season carrying the identity of the old one. Say this aloud right now. Let your own voice become the instrument that heaven uses to seal this truth inside your spirit. Say, I am a vessel that has been prepared by the hand of God, and my time of standing before the King has arrived. Now, I want to address something that your mind has struggled with more than almost anything else during this season. The silence. Not just the silence of unanswered prayers, but the silence that sometimes felt like it stretched into every corner of your existence. You watched other people receive their breakthroughs. You saw them posting celebrations, announcements, achievements. You smiled for them because your heart is genuinely good. But in the quiet moments afterward, when no one was watching, a question burned inside you like a coal that would not go out. Why them and not me? When is it my turn? Did I do something wrong that disqualified me from what they are walking into so easily? Let me answer that question right now with absolute clarity. The difference between their timeline and yours was never a difference in worthiness. It was a difference in assignment. A soldier being sent into a border skirmish does not require the same level of preparation as a general being positioned for a campaign that will reshape the map. Both are valued. Both are needed. But the scope of what is being entrusted to one of them requires a depth of training that the other simply does not need. What I have written on the scroll that bears your name is not a small assignment. It is not a comfortable, predictable, manageable little blessing that requires no courage and no character to carry. What is coming toward your life demands a foundation that could only be built in the kind of season you just survived. The people whose breakthroughs came quickly were not loved more than you. They were simply carrying assignments that did not require the same foundational depth that yours demands. And I will not apologize for taking the time necessary to build you properly, because what I am about to place on your shoulders is going to impact in not just your life, but the lives of people connected to you for generations to come. Let me speak specifically into the areas of your life where the ache has been most persistent. I know about the provision that felt like it was always one step behind the need. I know about the bills that stacked up while you were trying to serve me faithfully. I know about the moments when you had to choose between necessities because there was simply not enough to cover everything. And I know the shame that crept in. The voice that told you that a person of real faith should not be struggling this way. That voice was wrong. The struggle with provision was never evidence that your faith was deficient. It was evidence that I was teaching your spirit to depend on me as the source rather than on any system, salary, opportunity, or human arrangement that could be removed at any time. But hear me clearly. The teaching season is over. I am not extending the lesson. What I am about to release into your financial life is not a trickle. It is not barely enough. It is overflow. The God who fed an entire nation with bread that appeared on the ground every morning does not struggle with your electricity bill. The God who turned water into the finest wine at a celebration does not run out of creative solutions for your provision. I have been holding resources back, not because they did not exist, but because releasing them before the foundation was ready would have produced dependence on the gift instead of the giver. Now that your spirit has learned to stand on my faithfulness alone, the resources are being released, every single one of them. And I am speaking the same restoration over your relationships. Connections that were severed during the wilderness season were not all losses. Some were divine redirections. Some people had to leave your circle because their presence would have interfered with the frequency I was tuning your spirit to receive. but there are new connections that I have already prepared. Divine alignments with people whose assignment is linked to yours. People who will walk beside you not because of convenience, but because heaven bound their purpose to your journey before either of you knew the other existed. If this channel has become a place where heaven speaks to your spirit, where you encounter words that feel like they were written specifically for your life, then I invite you to join this family. Subscribe to this channel today so that you never miss a single word that the Creator sends through this place. Every time you return, you are stepping back into a river of revelation that heaven keeps flowing for those who remain faithful. Now, I am bringing you to the threshold of something that very few people are ever allowed to see during their lifetime on this earth. What I am about to tell you is the first major revelation that the sealed scroll holds over your existence. And I need your spirit to be completely still and completely open as I speak it. You were not placed on this earth to survive. You were placed here to carry something. There is a specific, irreplaceable, non-transferable assignment that was embedded in your spiritual DNA before your first heartbeat. It is not a general purpose. It is not a vague encouragement to simply be a good person and wait for heaven. It is a precise calling with specific dimensions, specific reach, and a specific impact on specific people who are waiting for you to step into it. The enemy knows what that calling is. That is why the attack against your life has been so targeted, so relentless, so personal. Darkness does not mobilize entire campaigns against lives that carry no threat. The level of resistance you have faced is a direct reflection of the size of what has been written on your scroll. I want you to hear that one more time because it will reframe every battle you have ever fought. The size of your warfare has always been a measurement of the size of your calling. The nights that were darkest, the losses that cut deepest, the betrayals that came from people who should have protected you. Every single one of those attacks was calibrated to a specific purpose, to make you put the scroll down, to make you forget it existed, to convince you that whatever was written on it must have been a mistake. But the scroll was never a mistake. And today I am reopening it before your very eyes. Listen carefully now, because I am speaking with the authority of the one who authored every word on that document. You, the person listening to this message right now, you were designed to be a gateway, a conduit through which heaven's healing, heaven's wisdom, heaven's restoration, and heaven's provision flow into the lives of people who would never encounter those things without you. You are not replaceable in this assignment. If you do not step into it, there is no backup plan. There is no substitute. There are people whose freedom is literally chained to your obedience. Their breakthrough will not come through someone else. It will come through you, or it will wait. That revelation should shake something loose inside you, because for years, you have been asking yourself the wrong question. You kept asking, when will my life change? But the real question, the one heaven has been waiting for you to ask, is, what am I carrying that the world needs? And the answer to that question is written on the scroll that is being unsealed over your life today. I see you, my child. I see the woman who raised children on her own, while heaven seemed to be looking the other way. I see the man who went to work every single day carrying an invisible weight that no colleague ever noticed. I see the grandmother who prays at 3 a.m. for grandchildren who do not know how close they have come to destruction because her knees have been their shield. I see the young person who feels like they are too old for their dreams and too young for anyone to take them seriously. I see the caretaker who has spent years pouring into everyone else while their own cup sits empty on the shelf covered in dust. I see all of you. And I want you to hear me speak these words with a voice that carries the tenderness of a father who has watched his child struggle long enough. You have earned what is coming, not through perfection, not through performance, not through any merit system that the world recognizes. You earned it through faithfulness, through the simple, unglamorous, repetitive act of showing up when everything inside you wanted to walk away, through continuing to pray when prayer felt like dropping stones into a bottomless well, through choosing to believe in my goodness when your circumstances were screaming evidence to the contrary. That faithfulness was not invisible. It was recorded. Every morning you opened your eyes and chose to keep going despite the heaviness. Recorded. Every night you whispered my name into the darkness even though no answer came back. Recorded. Every act of kindness you performed while your own heart was breaking. Recorded. Heaven has a ledger, my child, and yours is overflowing. The return on that investment is about to be released in a single concentrated wave that will touch every area of your life simultaneously. And just as heaven records your faithfulness, this ministry records its gratitude for every soul who chooses to stand behind the work being done here. The words you are hearing today do not arrive by accident. They are carried to you through a mission that runs on the generosity and partnership of people just like you. Ordinary believers who decided that keeping heaven's messages flowing was worth supporting with their own hands. If this word has spoken life into your spirit today, if you feel the weight shifting and the light breaking through, then I invite you to become part of this mission. Through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you can support this work by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of this community. Every single act of partnership, no matter how small it may seem to you, keeps these messages reaching the ears of people who are on the edge of giving up. People who are one word away from finding the strength to stand again. Your support becomes their lifeline, and heaven, which misses nothing, adds it to the ledger alongside every prayer you have ever spoken in the dark. But what I am about to reveal to you next is even more important than what I have already said, because I have not yet told you about the war, the specific, targeted, organized campaign that darkness has been waging against your life, and why it is about to fail spectacularly. The enemy is not a disorganized force that throws random trouble at your life and hopes something sticks. What you have been experiencing is a coordinated assault. It had timing. It had strategy. It had specific points of attack chosen for maximum damage at the precise moments when you were most vulnerable. Let me show you exactly how it worked so that you never fall for the same tactics again. The first weapon darkness used against you was isolation. It systematically removed or poisoned the relationships around you that provided strength. Some people were pulled away through misunderstandings that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Others were turned against you by whispered suspicions, half-truths, and offenses that were manufactured to create distance between you and the people who would have stood with you. The goal was never the relationships themselves. The goal was to leave you alone, because a warrior who is surrounded by allies fights with confidence. But a warrior who has been cut off from every source of support begins to question whether the fight is even worth continuing. The second weapon was exhaustion. Not ordinary tiredness, but a bone-deep soul-level depletion that made even simple tasks feel like climbing a mountain carrying a burden twice your weight. The enemy cannot steal your calling. He does not have the authority or the power to remove what heaven has placed on your life. But he can try to make you so tired that you voluntarily lay it down. He can attack your sleep. He can create financial pressures that consume your mental energy. He can introduce emotional crises that drain the reserves you need for spiritual focus. And slowly, layer by layer, the exhaustion accumulates until the person who once burned with holy fire can barely muster the energy to whisper a prayer before falling asleep. The third weapon, and this is the most dangerous one of all, was distortion. The enemy could not change what was written on your scroll. He could not erase your name or alter the words that the Creator placed there. But he could try to change how you read those words. He could take your calling and make it look like a burden. He could take your anointing and make it feel like a curse. He could take the very gifts that heaven placed inside you and twist your perception of them until you began to resent the things that were actually your greatest strengths. Every unique quality that made you different. The depth of your feeling, the intensity of your spirit, the ability to see what others cannot see. Those were features of your design, not flaws. But the enemy spent years convincing you that they were problems, that you were too sensitive, too intense, too much, too different. And slowly you began to hide the very things that heaven put inside you for the purpose of shaking kingdoms. But here is what the enemy did not count on. He did not anticipate the stubbornness of a God who finishes what he starts. He did not calculate the resilience that I was building inside you through the very attacks he was launching. Every weapon he used against you, I was using as raw material for your advancement. The isolation he created, I transformed into a sacred solitude where your hearing became sharper than it has ever been. The exhaustion he inflicted, I converted into a deep dependency on my strength that made you stronger than you were when you relied on your own energy. And the distortion he planted in your mind, I am dismantling piece by piece in this very moment as you listen to my voice speaking the truth of who you are over every lie that has ever taken root. Consider what happened when the walls of Jerusalem were being rebuilt. The moment construction began, opposition appeared instantly. Threats came from every direction. Mockery, conspiracy, sabotage. The enemies even tried to lure the builders away from the wall under the pretense of peaceful meetings. But the builders did not stop. They worked with a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other. They built and they defended simultaneously. And the wall, despite every attack, every scheme, and every attempt to halt its progress, was completed in 52 days. A project that should have taken years was finished in weeks because heaven's momentum cannot be stopped by the enemy's opposition. That is the picture of your life right now. The wall is being rebuilt. The opposition has been fierce. But the construction has never stopped. Even when you could not see progress. Even when you thought everything had stalled. The builder was still working. Stone by stone, layer by layer. In total silence. And what is about to be revealed is a completed work that the enemy will look at with absolute horror because he spent everything he had trying to prevent it and he failed. Right now, I want you to do something powerful. Think of at least 3 people in your life who are fighting battles in silence. People who cry when no one is looking. People who have lost their hope and are running on fumes. I want you to send this message to them today. Share it in your Facebook group. Send it in a direct text message to someone specific whose face just came into your mind. Do it, not because I am asking you to perform a task, but because the word that just rebuilt something inside your spirit has the power to do the same thing inside theirs. You could be the vessel through which their sealed scroll begins to open. Now, I am going to speak directly to the thing that has been blocking you. Because the sealed scroll could not be opened while this obstruction remained in place. And I have been working on it for longer than you realize. The blockage is not a sin. It is not a failure. It is not something you did wrong that requires punishment. The blockage is a belief, a deeply embedded conviction that has lived inside your spirit for so long that you stopped recognizing it as a foreign object. You began to think it was simply part of who you are, but it is not. And today, I am naming it so that your spirit can finally release it. The belief is this, that you are fundamentally on your own. That at the end of every prayer and every promise and every heavenly encounter, when the lights go off and the music fades, you are ultimately standing alone in the dark with no one truly holding you. This belief did not come from me. It was planted by experiences. Perhaps by a parent who left too early. Perhaps by a friendship that evaporated when you needed it most. Perhaps by a season so long and so silent that the only conclusion your heart could reach was that even God keeps his distance when it truly matters. That belief is a lie. And not just any lie. It is the master lie. the foundational deception on which every other fear in your life has been built. Because if you are truly alone, then provision is uncertain, love is temporary, purpose is fragile, hope is naive, and trusting anyone, including me, is just setting yourself up for another devastation. But if that lie is removed, if you allow me to reach into that place and extract it from the roots today, then every structure built on top of it begins to crumble. The fear crumbles. The scarcity mentality crumbles. The self-protection crumbles. The refusal to dream crumbles. And what is left is a foundation of truth strong enough to hold every single blessing that is written on your scroll. I am telling you right now, with the full authority of the throne of heaven, you are not alone. You have never been alone. Even in the moments that felt the emptiest, I was closer to you than your own breathing. When you lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling wondering if anyone in the entire universe cared whether you existed, I was lying right there beside you. My hand was on your chest. My voice was in your ear. And the fact that you could not feel me did not mean I was absent. It meant I was working in a dimension your senses could not yet access. But your spirit knew. That is why you kept going. That is why the thread never broke. Because deep beneath the doubt and the exhaustion and the numbness, your spirit recognized the grip of a hand that refuses to let go. And now that the master lie has been named, now that light has been poured directly onto the root of the deception, something is already shifting inside you. Can you feel it? There is a loosening happening in your chest, a weight that has been pressing down on your spirit for months, maybe years, is beginning to lift. Not because the circumstances around you have changed yet, but because the lens through which you see those circumstances is being corrected by the hand of the one who designed your eyes in the first place. I am restoring your joy, not the shallow happiness that depends on outcomes, not the temporary relief that comes when a problem is temporarily solved. I am talking about a deep, unshakable, rooted joy that flows from a single source, the absolute certainty that you are held by someone who cannot fail. This joy does not pretend that problems do not exist. It does not deny the weight of the season you have been walking through. But it stands on a foundation so solid that even when the ground beneath your feet is shaking, the place where your soul rests remains still. This joy will begin to show up in unexpected ways. You will notice it first in the mornings. There will be a day, soon, where you open your eyes and realize that the heaviness you have been waking up with for as long as you can remember is simply gone. Not suppressed. Not managed. Gone. And in its place will be something you have almost forgotten how to recognize. An anticipation. A quiet excitement about what the day might hold. Not because anything specific has changed on the outside, but because something fundamental has shifted on the inside. People around you are going to notice. They will look at you and sense that something is different, but they will not be able to name it. There will be a light in your eyes that was not there before, a steadiness in your voice, a calm confidence that does not need to prove itself to anyone, because it comes from a place so deep inside you that human opinion can no longer reach it. That is the mark of someone whose scroll has been unsealed. That is the signature of a life that has passed through the refining fire and come out carrying gold. I need you to speak these words right now with your own voice, because they are about to become the anthem of every season that follows this one. Say it aloud. I am not alone. I have never been alone. The God who held me through the fire is leading me into the fullness of everything He promised. Now I need to show you something about the reach of what is about to happen in your life. Because the blessings I am releasing are not contained to you alone. They are generational. What I am pouring out carries a current that flows forward through time and touches lives that have not even been born yet. When Abraham received a promise in the desert, he could not see the millions of descendants who would stand on the covenant that was made with one man under an open sky. He saw stars. but each star represented a lineage, a nation, a story that would span centuries. And the same principle is operating in your life today. The breakthrough you are about to walk into is not just your breakthrough, it is a doorway through which your children will pass, your grandchildren will pass. The spiritual sons and daughters who are connected to your obedience will pass. Every generational pattern of poverty, rejection, illness, or broken relationship that has recycled through your family line is being severed at the root in this hour. Not trimmed, not managed, severed. Because I do not do temporary repairs on permanent problems. When I cut a chain, it stays cut. There are patterns in your bloodline that you did not even know existed until I began exposing them during this hidden season. Patterns of women who loved deeply but were never fully loved in return. Patterns of men who worked themselves into the ground but never saw the fruit of their labor. Patterns of dreams that ignited brightly in one generation only to be extinguished by circumstances in the next. Those patterns had power because no one in the lineage ever had the spiritual depth to confront them. They required a vessel who had been through the furnace, a vessel who understood warfare, a vessel whose dependency on my strength had been tested so thoroughly that no amount of pressure could cause them to let go. That vessel is you. You did not choose this assignment. I chose it for you because I saw in you a stubbornness that matches my own, a refusal to quit that mirrors the very character of heaven. You inherited that tenacity not from any human ancestor, but from the one who made you. And now that tenacity is about to become the weapon that slashes through every inherited curse that has held your family captive for generations. The enemy saw this coming. That is why the fight for your life specifically has been so vicious. He was not fighting against a single person. He was fighting against the generational reset that your obedience is about to trigger. And this is where I stop comforting you and start commanding you. Because what comes next requires your active participation. Heaven does not deliver blessings to passive recipients. The Jordan River did not part while the people stood on the bank deliberating. The water moved when the priests put their feet in the river. The walls of Jericho did not fall while the army debated strategy from a distance. The walls fell when they marched, when they obeyed an instruction that made no military sense whatsoever. And the same principle governs the release of everything I have been describing to you. Today is the day of your decision, not the decision to believe. You have already shown me that through every prayer spoken in the dark. The decision I am asking for now is the decision to move, to stop waiting for the fear to go away before you take the step, to stop waiting for the circumstances to align perfectly before you walk through the door, to stop asking for one more sign, one more confirmation, one more piece of evidence that it is safe. I am your evidence. My word is your sign. And the fact that I am speaking to you right now, with this level of urgency and authority, should tell your spirit everything it needs to know about the significance of this moment. There are things that I have been preparing in the invisible realm that are waiting for your movement to trigger their release. Resources that are staged at the edge of your life like floodwaters behind a dam. Connections that are positioned one conversation away from intersection with your path. Doors that are not locked but are not yet visible because they only appear when the person walking toward them demonstrates the faith to approach without seeing. That is what I am asking from you today. Walk. Not because you can see the destination clearly. Not because the path looks safe, but because the voice that is guiding you has never failed anyone who trusted it. The old season of hesitation ends in this hour. The pattern of starting and stopping, believing and doubting, reaching out and pulling back. I am breaking it over your life right now. A new pattern is being established. A pattern of decisive, courageous, faith-saturated action that does not wait for feelings to cooperate before the feet begin to move. This is the operating system of the next season, and it begins the moment you decide that my word is more reliable than your fear. I am going to tell you how the next season will unfold, so that when it begins, you recognize my hand immediately. What is coming will arrive with the quality of suddenness, not slowness, not gradual improvement. A divine compression of time where years of delay are reversed in a matter of days. Situations that seemed permanently stuck will shift overnight. Doors that appeared welded shut will swing open without warning. A conversation you did not expect will place you in the right room at the right moment. An opportunity you did not pursue will pursue you. A connection that seemed impossible will materialize as naturally as breathing, and you will stand in the middle of it asking yourself, how did all of this happen so fast? I will tell you how. It happened because heaven operates on a different clock than earth. What takes decades in the natural realm takes seconds in the spiritual one. The moment the preparation is complete, the moment the vessel is ready, the moment the scroll is unsealed, everything that has been held in reserve is released simultaneously. And the result is what my children call a suddenly. But it was never sudden from my perspective. It was carefully, patiently, precisely timed. And your season of suddenly is now. Let me also speak about rest, because what I am calling you into is not another season of striving. The next chapter of your story does not require the exhausted, white-knuckled, barely surviving version of faith that got you through the wilderness. That was wilderness faith. It was necessary for the wilderness. But the Promised Land operates on a different system entirely. In the Promised Land, the ground is already fertile, the harvest is already planted, the infrastructure is already built. Your job is not to create everything from nothing. Your job is to steward what I have already prepared. That shift from creating to stewarding is the shift from exhaustion to rest, not laziness, not passivity, but a deep, abiding confidence that the God who prepared the table has already set every dish in its place. You do not need to run frantically between the kitchen and the dining room anymore. You simply sit down and receive what has been laid out for you. That is the rest I am calling you into today. A rest that trusts my provision so completely that it does not need to manufacture backup plans. A rest that sleeps peacefully at night because the one who watches over your life does not close his eyes. And now, I speak the final decree. This is the line I promised you at the beginning. The first words written on the sealed scroll that bears your name. Listen carefully, because these words carry the weight of eternity, and they are being spoken over your life with irrevocable authority. I, Archangel Michael, speaking as the messenger of the Most High God, decree over the life of the one hearing this message today. The season of withholding is finished. The season of delay is terminated. The season of confusion is dissolved. What was sealed is now open. What was hidden is now visible. What was held back is now released. Every tear that was sown in the dark is returning as a harvest of joy in the light. Every prayer that seemed unanswered is colliding with divine timing in this very hour and producing a response so comprehensive that it will touch every single area of your existence simultaneously. Your provision is decreed, not a trickle, not barely enough. Abundance that overflows from your life into the lives of everyone connected to you. Your health is decreed, not a slow improvement. A restoration so complete that your body, your mind, and your spirit will function at a level of vitality you have not experienced in years. Your purpose is decreed, not a vague sense of direction. A clear, specific, unmistakable assignment that carries with it the authority, the resources, and the divine connections necessary to fulfill every word that was written on your scroll. Your joy is decreed, not a temporary mood improvement, a permanent shift in the atmosphere of your inner world that nothing external can diminish, steal, or contaminate. And this is the first line written on your scroll. The line I told you I would read before this message ended. It reads, "Beloved, everything you lost in the fire was fuel, and everything the fire produced is the fortune you carry into every room you enter from this day forward. You did not survive the wilderness. You graduated from it. And the diploma you carry is written in a language that angels recognize, demons fear, and heaven honors. You are released. You are equipped. You are sent. Now go." Today, everything has changed. The scroll that was sealed is now open. The fire that tried to destroy you has been revealed as the forge that made you unbreakable. The lie that told you that you were alone has been named and dismantled by the voice of the one who has been holding you since before you were born. The warfare that targeted your life has been exposed as proof of the magnitude of your calling, and the charge has been given. Move forward. Walk. Do not wait for fear to grant its permission. I speak a blessing over every area of your life right now. Over your finances. Overflow. Over your health. Restoration. Over your relationships. Divine alignment. Over your mind. Peace that surpasses every rational explanation. Over your family. Generational freedom. Over your purpose. Clarity and courage. These are not wishes. These are decrees, spoken from the throne of heaven, through the mouth of an archangel who has been authorized to release them over your existence today. Now, before I lead you into the closing prayer, take this message and send it to at least 2 people who need to hear that their fire was not the end of their story. Share it in your WhatsApp group or your church prayer circle. Let the word that rebuilt you today become the word that saves someone else tonight. And if this message has been a turning point in your spirit, if you feel the shift that heaven is producing inside you right now, then I invite you to partner with this mission through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether through buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of this community, your partnership keeps these messages reaching people across the world who are one word away from giving up. Every seed you plant into this work is recorded in the same heavenly ledger where your faithfulness is already overflowing. Subscribe to this channel today so that every message heaven releases through this place finds its way to your spirit exactly when you need it most. This is not just a channel. This is a divine appointment that continues every time you return. Speak this final declaration over your life with authority. Say, "I am the vessel that fire could not destroy. I carry a scroll that darkness could not seal. And I walk into my next season with the full backing of the God who never left my side." And now, let us pray. Heavenly Father, I come before you on behalf of every soul who has received this word today. I ask you to seal what has been spoken. Let no enemy reverse it. Let no doubt diminish it. Let no circumstance contradict the truth that has been planted in their spirit in this hour. Guard their steps as they walk forward. Surround them with angels who fight on their behalf. Open their eyes to see what you have already prepared. Give them the courage to move when your voice says move. And let the record of heaven show that on this day, the scroll was broken open, and they received everything that was written inside it. In the mighty and holy name of Jesus Christ, amen and amen.